lonesome. Until I first met you, I was lonesome. And when you came inside, dear, my heart grew light and this whole world seemed new to me. You're really swell, I have to admit you deserve expressions that really fit you. And so I've racked my brain hoping to explain all the things that you did to me. Come here, Mr. Shane, please let me explain. Come here, Mr. Shane, means you're grand. Come here, Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the Shane means you're grand. Come here, Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land.
Greetings from the Andrews sisters. I'm Patty.
I'm Maxine.
And I'm Laverne.
Say Bella, Bella, even seven bar each language only helps me tell you how grand you are. I've tried to explain, me if it's too shame, so kiss me, kiss me, kiss me, I say that you will understand.
God, I'm got the rhythm is sweet.
Welcome here, everyone. We're excited to be underway with what could be the final weeks of the regular season here with the College Deadlock Season 0 regular season split. That's a lot of words. My name is Orbital. With me is, of course, Philly B, and we will be your casters for this evening. Philly, how are you doing as we are heading into what is pretty much one of the ending matches for the regular split?
Yeah, we're in week 7, so the penultimate week. This is do or die for a lot of teams to make that push into the playoffs. They're trying to right their records to make sure they're in the top 4 in their groups. But over the last week, the 13th, the 16th, the 19th, there's been patch after patch after patch to really try to right the jungle. So I'll be curious to see how these teams kind of navigate some of those changes.
Of course. And with that in mind, the two teams that we have here today are really trying to play it out here. These are both teams that are actively in a very, very rough spot. This is Georgia Tech going up against George Mason University. Georgia Tech, I believe, sitting at a 1-3 scoreline, and George Mason University sitting at a 1-4. And unfortunately, I do believe George Mason University is just playing for upset value, trying to really make sure Georgia Tech doesn't get closer to that chance to moving on.
Yeah, but the thing that I've seen them play throughout the season, they've taken a lot of teams to 2-1, so they are winning games. It's not like they're out of it. They're really competitive. It's just in those final moments, they can't just get it over the finish line. On the opposite end, Georgia Tech, they're beating the teams that they need to beat. Now, this is a good chance for them to get to that 2-3. 2-3, not too bad. If they can win next week, 3-3, that might be enough to squeeze by. So they're really looking for that win tonight.
Yes, and they need it to come cleanly as well. You're going up against GMU, and GMU, as you mentioned, keeping a lot of teams at a 2-1 stance, or a 1-2, if you will, depending on how you look at it. So for Georgia Tech, not only are we looking for the victory, but we need to be somewhat clean because, as you just mentioned, they have fought fairly well, and they know what they're coming towards here. If they win, you for sure know they're going to be like low rung of the totem pole. And you really, when going into playoffs, you don't want to leave yourself as that. You want to be able to say, hey, you know, we had a rough early season. Yeah, we probably went up against some really tough opponents. We need to be able to play strong. So going into this draft, I want to see a good draft from them as well. And I want to see what Georgia Tech are able to throw down. I mean, Reshne, we got Night Rays as well. These are a lot of players that obviously we haven't heard around the circuit as much, but they're going to be wanting to step up and make their name here today.
Yeah, this is their time to shine, right? You get to be on the College Deadlock stream. Make your presence felt. Shatter the server, if you will. Do a great play that we can clip and have your name in lights. So I'm expecting these folks to really put their hearts and souls into this match. In terms of the heroes that I'm expecting, it's still going to be a lot of what we've seen so far. Yes, we've had all these patches that have gone through in terms of changing the jungle, but it hasn't really changed too many of the characters themselves. I think we'll still see Seven and the like making their way out here, probably have the Magnificent St. Clair banned out, all that good stuff. I want to see the Bebop actually a little bit more today, getting some of those hooks, making some of those flashy moves. I know the Moan Krill has been priority a lot too, especially in the Fight Night side of things. So, you know, we'll see if we have a good Moan Krill player out here on the server.
Yeah, and I think that leans into also the fact that we are watching a lot of teams also find out just different ways to win, is the best way I can put it. Now, we've seen teams dive into one or the other, as I believe the teams are ready to go ahead with this draft here, and we'll be excited to see what they can throw down. We've seen teams specifically go for either hyper-aggressive styles, where we see teams basically draft 4 to 5 DPS and just run like a singular utility, which normally is like a dynamo, I'll be honest. Like, you see the dynamo in there, and honestly, that can cover all your bases. But we have seen teams actively choose to just go ham. So, in contrast to what you're talking about, you know, having that Bebop, having some of the extra CC with the Moan Krill, Calvin even in there, I am very curious if Georgia Tech are going to run a full DPS squad, because you're going up against George Mason. Maybe you do pull that out, but at the current moment, we already see some of that DPS taken away, as the Lady Geist as well as the Vindicta are both taken off, and that's Georgia Tech immediately with the Warden.
Yeah, I think since it is a best of 3 series, right, maybe out of the gate you don't put like that 5 DPS 1 utility. You know, you want to see what the other team is in terms of matching tempo, and then if you need to mix it up in the draft, you go for it. I like the Lady Geistband. She's an extremely strong laner, pairs well with pretty much everyone, and then has great scalability. Vindicta, if you watched Lefa play on Fight Night last night, just running train on folks, scaling game after game, take that off the board. Warden, a really good pick, just kind of good frontliner, can sustain in lane, can have some good poke and harass. On the opposite side, a fantastic opener here, the Calvin, one of the strongest heroes in the game right now, great anti-dive, heal, and then the Calico. We've been talking about her for months now, just unstoppable force in the Curse Apple.
Oh yes, it's been a pain in the butt, quite honestly, and having those two on the same side, George Mason have already started off this draft, I think, in a great standing. You've already gotten high priority, and the Warden, if you don't get off the ground, it's going to be a problem. Georgia Tech need to realize that, hey, maybe we need to take something like that Mirage, have another DPS in our back pocket. We've seen things, I think, like Wraith, come out, and we've seen, being able to utilize a little extra damage behind. We are still waiting to see what Georgia Tech are going to use, and there it is, actually. So gonna go ahead and bring a little bit of that extra damage, and then there's the Moan Curl that you mentioned has been highly prioritized, is picked up third for Georgia Tech.
So if I'm George Mason right now, I'm wondering, okay, they prioritized Warden first. They're showing us their hand. What is a character that we can take off the board that basically helps facilitate Warden do well, right? We want to make sure that he is minimized because, like you mentioned, Orbital, he needs to snowball. He does need a little bit of farm to get online, sort of like Abrams, right? Feels good when you're ahead, feels real bad when you're behind. And so kind of taking that down. Maybe they have a specialist on their squad that only plays Warden. What can we do to make sure we minimize their impact? George Mason picking one of the best carries in the game. The Mirage has great global presence, great attack speed, great harass in lane, just can do it all basically so far. And there they go, they ban out the Ivy.
So I was actually going to say I really would like George Mason to actually pick up the Ivy on their own, but of course you prioritize the Mirage, so you say, okay, we can't do that, can't leave the Ivy open, because then you allow the Warden, Moan Curl, and Ivy combination, and it's a great pick and roll composition is what I like to call it. You just send in the Moan Curl, you send in the Ivy, hot drop them in, take out one person, and you're good to go. It is the easiest to execute composition to ensure the carry is gone. On the flip, though, Abrams taking away that big CC value, and I'm actually really surprised about this because both teams have opted not to worry about the Dynamo, and I think, once again, that Dynamo could be that final piece of the puzzle. If George Mason University wish, you can trust the Dynamo here and not worry, but instead, you say, no worries, we're going to go ahead and grab the one, the only Holiday.
I'm interested about that. So the Dynamo, I'm okay with because they have the Calvin, so they still have some healings to sustain, whatever. It's the front line now that I'm a little bit worried about. I thought a Viscus might be good because there's still some of that healing with the Cube, right? A little bit of that tank ability since they took the Abrams off the board, which I think is a really good ban there from Georgia Tech. So George Mason is kind of prioritizing the early tempo. They want to bring that out. And yes, we're oohing and on now because the Magician, he's poofed on the battlefield.
Yeah, and I'm excited because now it really does feel like George Mason need to identify that we do need that front line. As you said, the Viscos could be good, but I really want offensive help. And I will say it again. I will say it yet again. Please pick up the Dynamo. It is up. It is available. You don't truly need more damage. When you have a Holiday, when you have a Mirage, when you have a Calico, all of these are already great DPS in their own, but they draft a fourth. They go for the Infernus. I'm not upset about this, but again, this is starting to lean into a very heavy micro-intensive skill check type beat. You really don't have enough to really hold them down. And they're going with the Yamato, so this is a 5 DPS composition. And at this point, you've thrown down the gauntlet saying, are you ready to fight? That's really what I see here.
Yeah, no holds barred. Just like you predicted, you're like, okay, one of these teams, they're going to go for it. And here we are, George Mason doing just that. Yamato in a very interesting spot, but the Greytown as the final pick, kind of trying to diversify the damage here, right? Greytown usually specs into Spirit, whereas Wraith and Haze, they go more gun build. So I like this as a final pick, especially if because it's 2-2-2, you want to have a carry in one of those lanes that is going into Spirit. So a fine pick up there for Georgia Tech.
And for George Mason, I am going to be very curious. We'll dive into it once we hop into the game and we can really take a look. But the allocation of lane that you just mentioned, the 2-2-2, where do you put all these players? Because the only one that can really sit there and say is going to be a comfortable support or a comfortable secondary is the best way I like to call it, is the Kelvin. Kelvin is the best one, I think, in terms of just kind of routing that difference. Maybe you give most of the souls over to that primary, but you look down the line, 5 out of the 6 really want any of the souls that you have to offer. Any of these guys could be crazy, so maybe it's one of two. You're saying George Mason, hey, whoever pops off, pop off. The other is going to roll back up, run it from there. But honestly, I am a little bit scared about how greedy each of these characters needs to be. So for Georgia Tech, allocation is one thing, but I think either way you can sit there and you know who the carriers are going to be. On George Mason, I have no idea, I'll be honest, how you're going to allocate these comfortably for the players.
I'd be very unsurprised if they did the Calico and the Yamato mid lane, especially because Yamato can get up on top and just just shoot down the shurikens, right? Win that lane outright, and then they split, right? That one goes left, one goes right, and then they kind of create those disadvantages on the outer lanes just because of how well these two characters can navigate the map and create those gank opportunities. So, or put the Holiday in place of one of those two and then one of the others on the outside. But you're right, it's going to be the souls that is going to be really telling in terms of who gets what.
All right, well, let's go ahead and hop into game right away as we head on in. Want to give a big shout out to, of course, Fit Gamer, because Fit Gamer makes things run a lot easier for us here. We got to give a big shout out to them, as hopefully we get some rejuvenators in as well. But as we're diving in, we can go ahead and see these lane allocations. Great talent, as well as, I believe, the Sinclair off to the left side, or no, Sinclair to the mid. And I'm just watching this one, the Yamato as well, here in the right side lane with the Calico. All right, let's see how this kind of mixes up.
I mean, so they did pair them together, just not in the lane that I thought they were going to. So unfortunate for me, but still, we'll see what they can do. Maybe they go with the teleporter play. We saw Leffa last night and Fight Night just go back and forth because there's no cooldowns on these things, basically. So maybe that's what they're going to do to try to create those disadvantages across the map. But right now, I love this. These lanes for Georgia Tech are just so perfectly crafted. It's just like one tank, one sustainer, one DPS. And so I feel like that could really carry them forward.
Want to see if this if the style does help, because again, for Georgia Tech, they are looking for that victory. They are looking for that win to be able to move on possibly as one of the top 4. Of course, quick laser comes out here, and for Sinclair, this is one of those heroes that we're always so curious about. We've seen it ban away multiple times, and it's just an annoyance factor, right? Having that Hex in the back pocket and all, but I've yet to see a super strong Sinclair player. It's always great on the secondary, though.
Yeah, it's you have to be really calculated with the way that you use your abilities. You can't just like spam the assistant, spam the bunny, whatever. You have to be coordinated with your team. And sometimes, at this level, teams aren't always the most perfectly timed, but really effective with this character, especially if you steal a right ultimate like a Holiday on the other side, get the lasso, suck somebody up, and take him down. So I'm excited to see him out on the Cursed Apple here today. We'll see what he can get done with it.
For the moment, it's been quiet pretty much everywhere, it feels like, but you can go ahead and see George Mason kicking things up to about a 2k souls lead. Nothing too crazy in that bucket, and that's kind of the cool thing is, again, it's been very comfortable, to say the least. They have been a slow increase here, but of course, it's Sella on that Mo and Krill and Big Mike, those two that have been a little bit worse for wear over on that left side, so they're going to be looking on Georgia Tech's side to kind of work their way up and around while we still watch George Mason University be very comfortable in their souls lead.
And this doesn't surprise me. This is a very oppressive lane from Mathematical and Solar Flare with the powder kegs, with the ice cannon. I mean, you can just poke and prod at the opposition. That Moan Krill is going to be hard pressed to really get up in there, use Scorn and other abilities to put the damage on. You can see a Frost Grenade just chunking the health pool of the Great Talon here. You can see why they're far behind in the souls.
It's been a difficult time, and this is one of the best ways to play without getting those finishes, without getting those KOs, if you will, without getting those kills. You just force them out of lane, and I love it. Take a look at this. Not only that are they low, but it's full HP here for Calvin. You are looking so wonderful in that stance, and so you're going to be real happy about this one. So far, continued pressure. Not much damage down on the Guardian, but what a snipe coming out here. Solar Flare says, I got one in the bank. Beautiful shot.
That was like a skeet shooting moment. Just tracked down the Talon in the sky and a crack shot to the dome. Secures the first blood, and we just talked about how impactful this lane is. And they come up with the goods there that time. So very telling for Georgia Tech. They might have to divert some resources to save this lane over here. They can't let this Guardian go down early.
No, they can't. Right now, there's a duel out as the Wraith goes ahead and dives up on the top side. Waiki says, no, thank you. We don't want to let a Mirage have enough freedom there. We've already lost one. We need a little bit of a win on the other side. Georgia Tech, for their own, they haven't found any majority share control over any of the lane setups, so yeah, that's what we're going to be watching for right now. A little bit in the mix, though, as this is going to be the Warden taken quite low, and that's going to be a double here. Night Rays and you annihilating George Mason for how they drafted. They're playing directly into it. Heavy DPS, heavy wins.
And here's the thing, they've reached the 3K soul mark miles ahead of Georgia Tech, and so that's that tempo setter we talked about during the draft. If you get that online, you can take those fights because you have an extra ability on the board, and it's one of your best ones in the kit. And there, the Shadow Transformation is good from the Drink takes down too.
For Georgia Tech, you don't really want to see this. We talked about the fact that they really want this win. They need this win if they're going to try and step up for a top 4 position, and to have a early game like this just doesn't feel good. Now, of course, early game does not matter for everything, I should say. It is a defining factor, but it is not the end-all be-all. But to fall down now about 6K behind feels bad, so we need to see a little bit of a shakeup. But of course, Team Mom not exactly in a very good spot there, very low on the HP bar as we watch this Infernus. Zany has been awesome here in some of these 1v1s. Right now gets a little bit caught out here, guns denied, and they have to walk back as they're about 450, but that's Solar Flare with a great chunk out. And they go ahead and win out on the left side of the battlefield. Didn't even see that happen.
Yeah, once again, we talked about the mismatch in that lane, and you can just get poked down. The Grey Talon doesn't have any healing, and Scorn only really heals the Moe and Krill. So, but the big thing is the Guardians. As long as the Guardians are healthy, it's okay if they give up a couple kills. So the Guardians have not fallen yet, but that one in lane number 1 is really close to going down.
Yeah, it's what, one more good turn and all of a sudden it's gone. So Georgia Tech starting to realize they are falling behind very heavily in this stance. And I know you're calling it. Just wait for the Guardian. Wait for the Guardian. At this point, I'm taking a look at those soul counts, and once the Guardian falls, we're gonna see the full weight of Georgia Mason, the squad that we have been, kind of waiting for a big noise to come out of. Right now, they're just saying, "Hey, we're playing with abandon. We are playing with like we have nothing to worry about. We are going to play spoiler and get our due victories." And we're taking a look at the one that may do it all in Solar Flare, who has so far gotten the majority share of those frag outs, of those kills. Another barrel goes out here just to be an annoyance, and it looks like the snipes are doing just enough to push Big Mike away.
Yeah, and it was because Selili went back to base to do a little healing, and so that just left the Grey Talon all alone. Another engagement here, the Wraith's in trouble.
Yes, the Wraith has to back away, but of course teammates are there to back him up, and so this is going to be a little bit of a shakeup, but the Mirage and the Infernus are doing okay on the far end, though. We watch as Calico is ripping through you, and Death says, "I am Death, behold," and Loch Nessie and GT Key say the same, and it's plethora of death galore as George Mason University step up to the plate, take a lot of victories, and continue their push of dominance.
Yeah, this heavy DPS composition, just putting the pedal to the metal, it's gonna outwin these kind of tank lines compositions just because of the amount of damage that can be put in. You hit those headshots, you get those stacks, and you're just gonna be chunking through the health because the items just aren't there yet. If this game gets later, maybe if the mid game they can survive that long, but we will see. On lane number 1, that Guardian does go down. A big chunk of souls going over the way of George Mason. And we know in this meta right now, once you win one lane, that'll unlocks. So one player or both players then make moves around the map, and then you win the other lane. So right now, Georgia Tech on the back foot.
It's actually why we're seeing such a heavy influx. You mentioned that swap out. Immediately we saw a 3-3 setup there from Georgia Tech and George Mason in the mid with a flex over towards that right side. Everyone's starting to get into that mix, into that dangerous part, and George Mason, for their own, are saying, yeah, let's go ahead and run it. Once again, the Holiday steps right up to bat. Solar Flare, who has had a majority share of those finishes, feels great. You see them rocking around. The Grey Talon does not enjoy staying in air right now, and it's just not safe over there. So for Georgia Tech, you are falling behind a little bit here, and now you're getting caught underneath the bridge here. The Yamato stepping away for a moment to get in with the 1v1, or actually making a 2v1. The Drink says it's the win, and George Mason yet again closing the door scores ever so slightly on this game 1 victory for Georgia Tech as that Souls lead continues to expand, make it a massive door shutting as that's 2. George Mason take control here with a 16k Souls lead.
Yeah, that is just elimination after elimination. I'm pretty sure nobody on George Mason has fallen yet. So they are just stacking up the souls, getting abilities online and items to boot. Now they just have to capitalize on it, whether it's take controls when the urn comes on in 30 seconds, get some bridge buffs, and then really push these Guardians.
Well, for right now, it doesn't look like they'll be able to do much more. Zany, though, might have overstepped their boundaries as Georgia Tech are looking to fight back here if they can, but they just can't hold on. Take a look at that. Force away from the 2v1 because it turned into a 2v2 and then some. Rush on in from the Infernus, though, saying, okay, I got out with the ult, just breaking ankles if I can. Burns their way to safety. And George Mason University say we're comfortable. Take a look at the lane allotments still as George Mason are looking to maybe take down that mid lane.
And that's the power of the Kelvin. The cavalry arrived, 1 frost grenades, heals up Zany, and they're allowed to live and get back in the fight and do enough damage to move the other team away. What's really interesting for me, though, is that Big Mike is in the mid lane and not over in the lane number 1, securing farm. They're giving the farm over to this Mo and Krill when really it's the great talent who needs it the most. Maybe they're trying to hide Big Mike over here in the middle, or they feel like they need the extra damage, but right now he needs those items.
100%. I mean, we need to see these carries be carries. And yes, Mo and Krill can do work. Don't get me wrong. We've seen Mo and Krill's carry, but right now you're losing hands every which way. The Drink is now on a 4-kill streak, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. You can see some of these signs. Big Mike is like, yes, I'm landing the shots, but there's no oomph behind it at this point. It's a toy bow and arrow. You do no damage. It's like a Nerf dart.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That's a perfect analogy for it. The urn is now on the map. We'll see if Georgia Tech steps their way to it, maybe trying to make a risky maneuver. For now, their composition is, to play it safe. That's what they've been doing, but they've been hemorrhaging, bleeding ever so slowly throughout this first 11 minutes.
Right now, we see Loch Nessie just going ahead, farming out that jungle, but we see a little bit of a collapse everywhere else. Mid lane in a 1v3, but collapsing from the Calvin and Infernus. So George Mason starting to get those heavy rotational values down. They even set the Mirage off to the left side to match with that Mo and Krill, which I know Mirage is going to be so happy about. But this is a point where George Mason are starting to say, hey, we're actually doing a lot of really good work here. Georgia Tech not being able to respond in the early game means George Mason get free reign here in the mid game, maybe setting them up for a quick crash into those walkers as soon as possible.
Yeah, they have the confidence. They know they've hit the power spikes going into this mid game. They know they can take the fights, and they're doing it now.
Oh, that's a great rebuttal in, though, and I was watching that go down here, and they tried, but the Drink was ready. Georgia Tech tried to bring a fight there in the mid, and it just did not work. I don't think all of them were on the right point. Night Rays trying to dance in the midst on the far end, but at the end of the day, it's still that Amber Guardian destroyed. And a very, very nice job. So for George Mason, they are opening up the map ever further as Georgia Tech do take out the right side Guardian. And it looks like we're seeing some pieces back and forth as Night Rays was able to get a kill as well.
Yeah, and that was a tactical give and take here as we have the Yamato grappling in the Crimson Strike as well, and a power shot. Just one taps the haze. My goodness.
I mean, that's George Mason, though. You say, hey, tactical give? Nah, you're going to pay with your life one way or another. We are not going to let you reach those top 4 easily. We're going to make you fight to the bitter end. And honestly, if Georgia Tech are wanting to come back into this game, I wouldn't be surprised to see this drawn out another 20, 30 minutes even.
Yeah, we'll see if they can get there. I mean, just the pace at which George Mason is playing at has been pretty impeccable so far. Just trying to scoop up any bit of jungle that Georgia Tech can. They're severely behind in souls. No one's in double digits yet.
No, it's that hurts to say, man. I don't like you calling it out, but it's so real. They're all sitting at like 9, 8K, which puts them way behind the curve, and that's why we're seeing this Walker get punished here. Right now, it's only one person as well, and that's just Mirage. They're going to go ahead and try and run away here, though. Loch Nessie trying to run as fast as they can, tries to ult, but unfortunately, you can only get so far. Quickly sniped out as Georgia Tech rightly forced Loch Nessie to pay the price of going for that Walker.
Yeah, that's what they need to take. Some of these check the hubris, right, of George Mason, because there are going to be people who think they can go on their own because they're at a power spike, but you win in numbers in this game. So taking those fights tactically when you can on the appropriate people. If you go after Calvin, you might not get him, right? But the Mirage, without his ultimate online, you can definitely tackle him down, and they did so there.
My friend, survival is paramount.
Now, are they allowed to do it multiple times in a row, though? Because we've already identified that George Mason, with this overwhelming offensive composition, know how to play in that kind of DPS route, if that makes sense. They know how to fight very, very hand-in-hand. They're willing to take those fights as well. Georgia Tech, where do they go, right? How do they bring these fights about? Because we haven't seen them really group up yet. We are seeing them try these individual battles as well, but, I mean, the Mo and Krill hasn't had the greatest time. You can see here, you ult in, and yet you barely get anything. You already fall right there, and no one else in Georgia Tech is around. You are not a carry, Mo and Krill, just yet.
That's like your initiation tool. They tried it, and I think they just picked the wrong target, unfortunately. I believe it's Mathematical, who has so much health right now, and there's just nothing they could do. And then Calico doing a little plank meme impression, just gliding along the battlefield there as well. But still, that does not bode well for Georgia Tech.
It does not, but you know what bodes well is you try to get into this mix, is able to find one, maybe another. They've been able to farm up so well, and is this Warden, this B1 Warden, going to yield results so far in the 1v2? It has. Now you get a little bit further chase as Waiki says, please, let's fight some more. Mathematical, though, goes ahead and grabs the urn on the far end. So Georgia Tech, they're fighting on one front, possibly losing another team. Mom, though, finds Solar Fury. Huge shutdown now for Georgia Tech, as hold up, Georgia Tech starting to come alive here, but the drink shuts that one down right back. Georgia Tech maybe overstepping their boundaries. With Yamato saying, yes, you vastly did. Hard chase. Blade is out. Gets the kill as well. A little bit of a hex on the back end as Georgia Tech look for revenge yet again. But they are paying the price and winning some as well. As Loch Nessie, though, finds Night Rays, and that's 3 total. George Mason answered the call in Georgia Tech. I wouldn't really call that a win.
Yeah, welcome to the mid-game, ladies and gentlemen, where it is just brawl central. It's like an arena shooter more than a MOBA when it gets to this point in the map. It's all about how you make the macro movements across the map right now. The Georgia Tech went for a push. They thought they could take it. They got a little damage on that Guardian. They took some kills, but then they just got stomped into the dirt when all the big boys showed up.
And it's one of the things that Georgia Tech has to realize is you're not allowed to take these extended fights. The longer you stay, the longer you're giving George Mason to be able to fight back. Right now, a little bit of a claw, though, going down onto the Calico, and that might be the catch that you want, but a nice little deflect allows a little bit of time for Death Ninja to actually escape death in their own quick twist down these hallways. As once again, you on this Warden is looking to be kind of that stalwart 1v1er, but you're leading directly into a little bit of a mix. We're watching the rest of the teams here set up for these hallways position as Georgia Tech. It's like, okay, once again, don't overstep our boundaries just yet.
Yeah, this team was probably like in the mics, like, back up, back up, back up. We do not have any vision on the map. You're going into a trap, and a trap was laid there. You saw the Holiday with Lasso ready, just licking their lips, waiting for that Warden to come through. Fortunately, you very intelligently backed off for now. Starting to stabilize here is Georgia Tech, but they're still down 20k souls, excuse me.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, we've seen in some of these matches as teams still kind of fluctuate trying to find their identity, and especially for teams that are, you know, on the cusp of possibly getting eliminated from playoffs. We've seen them take desperate turns, and we've seen teams actually overcome a 22 to 25k deficit if a mix happens. So maybe we see that here as Georgia Tech, though, goes ahead and plays with their own. Yes, they go ahead and see the Kelvin ult. The cage is down, but now we get a twist in. Loch Nessie was able to take out you on the back end, which means this Mo and Krill is not in a good spot. Cell has to run away, and the urn's being transported as well, so this is much a diversion. Loch Nessie is able to get a 2-0. Georgia Tech let that fall, though, and say, we'll take that. We'll drop 2 and we'll raise you an earn capture. So Georgia Tech, they will take that gamble one way or another, and that's something that they have to contend with.
But what's really scary is how well George Mason took that fight. They used the Frozen Seltzer, oh my gosh, to lock out the Mo and Krill, and then the Mo and Krill solo ulted somebody that already had all their barriers, so the combo did nothing, and then they just got run down as well. Knock Lessie getting a little too aggressive for his britches. He gets eliminated.
Yeah, that's going to be the rough part. But once again, Georgia Tech now having their own trade applied against them here. But the claw does work, as you says, you take our walker, we'll take your holiday. And it's this battle back and forth of what are you willing to give in terms of what are you willing to get. And Georgia Tech are, whether or not it's specifically done, they are taking these trades that are keeping them within the right calls. Take a look at this. That Souls lead is now down to only 15,000 instead of the 20,000 that we saw earlier. But of course, right now, there is a little bit of a hex down, and you can see the Calico just like, yo, well, now we're just straight up to the Souls difference. We know you can play the macro, but can you play the DPS? And Georgia Tech say, not really. Team Mom eliminated.
Yeah, it's always a bad time when your support is the frontliner. They're just going to get chopped down quite quickly, as Team Mom did there. Right now, not seeing too much coming out from the Magician. Haven't seen any too wild plays, but you're right. I mean, structures are falling on either side. The Walkers are still up here for George Mason, but only one remaining for Georgia Tech. Or two, actually. Sorry. Barely, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've done a good job of almost stemming the bleeding, right? Like, this is a Souls lead, in my opinion, that George Mason should be able to push out another Walker. And as you mentioned, it's been close. It's been relatively close, but Georgia Tech, once again, are able to find another Walker, and now you've cleared out the entire front line. Now you can access those Walkers, as long as you don't die here. Once again, we've seen this lock in step. Every time a structure is taken, it feels like death blossoms around. You, though, says, with the Warden, I am online now, and I'm ready to battle. Full inventory, stacking up to level 2s and level 3s. As all of a sudden, George Mason is like, hey, we can't really contend with you on our own. We might need a few more hands to help out here. Quick chase behind, though, as a Haze is locked out, and the Drink is going in their own 1v2, 1v3 mission. Quick dance forward as the Burrow might not be enough. The Drink goes down, or doesn't, as Solar Flare helps out. And that is a huge step for George Mason as Georgia Tech overstepped their hand.
It's one step forward, one step back here for Georgia Tech. They're taking good fights in one part of the map and then not taking good fights in the other side of the map. That time, the Moan Krill just not in the right spot, just gets swarmed on and taken down. All the while, another Walker goes tumbling here for Georgia Tech.
But see, that this happens. You know, you was able to find another one, and now 3 kills in a row. But of course, as we always say, macro is what wins games, and with about 4 DPS in tow, George Mason ready to push down this Walker just as well. Fight breaking out, though, as the shell comes out, and it's able to lock everyone in position. So it is going to be a George Mason to kind of use that Kelvin, slow down the pace here. What do you want to play with? Right straight into the back line, though, diving off the zip line and chasing into the back pocket. And it is going to be Solar Flare, still not available for this, so it's really on the Drink and the rest. Georgia Tech saying, what can we get here? But we're corralled in. Great Hex to force the likes of the Drink out, but that is going to be the Haze trying to dance their way to victory, but unfortunately they danced their last. The shoes are hung up here, and that is going to be George Mason to force the rest of Georgia Tech away. Georgia Tech retreating or being forced, as that is a wipe of 4 and then some against Georgia Tech. George Mason, very comfortable team fight win.
I mean, that was incredible play from George Mason. It was a bait. It was like, okay, we slow it down, like you mentioned, and then there was no discipline from Georgia Tech. They just ran at him instead of playing with their Walker, where they have a tower to do extra damage for them. They decide to go into these sneaky alleyways and try to hunt people down, and that's exactly what George Mason wanted, because they know they're up in souls and in items, and so they just dismantled them from there, took the fights they wanted to take, and then they got what they came for, is the Walker. Now they're getting even more. Here's the mid-boss.
And right now, this is going to be that huge play for them. George Mason have looked so comfortable in this game so far. They're saying, you might have counted us out now, but it ain't over until it's over. And with that, the Fit Gamer Rejuvenator going the way of George Mason here. No contention from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, a really intelligent play once again there from George Mason. They won the team fight. They got the structure. They backed off immediately and took the mid boss. Now they're going to be looking to contest this urn, because the Wraith took a little roundabout, and they know that they have the advantage here once again. So this is going to be a messy one over the urn.
And honestly, maybe Georgia Tech are still using a two-pronged attack. Take a look on that minimap. We're seeing a right side push from them. But this fight is all that it matters as the drink yet again annihilates the Mo and Krill. Denials upon denials. The drink is now 11 kills straight. Death Ninja follows suit. It's a wash of 3, and Georgia Tech, they took the gamble yet again, but the game one hopes are slipping through their fingers. Not a chance at all, as that is the urn picked up. George Mason are able to collect, and that Souls lead went from 20k to 15, now ballooning to 30k.
And it was the Mo and Krill getting caught out again in these rotations. It's like, okay, are we going to contest the urn? Yes, no, yes, no. You have to be definitive in your communications so that you can set up the ambush, knowing that they're going to try to deliver, right? This time, though, George Mason doing a way better job of setting the ambush. They clean up 4. They're looking for more.
And for George Mason, I was mentioning before that they're in a little bit tougher rut than Georgia Tech, but if they can win here and then, matching up against the likes of NSC Esports, they have a chance at reaching that fourth place berth as well. And the fact that they're coming out with game one like this one gives me a lot of hope for, as you said, the adjustments in this season, the wash of patches that have come through. It might be leaning into their favor. This quintuple DPS check that we have mentioned is working, and I want to see it work even further for them.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point, because it's all about the team cohesion, and that grows as you play more and more matches, as you get together as a squad. And so it sometimes takes a season for a group to really figure out, like, wait, you should really be on DPS, and I should really be on the support, etc. Maybe they found out, wait, we're all DPS players. Let's build a comp around that. And there's the one guy that's like, I'm the support player. Okay, fine, we'll toss you in, right? So I think that's fine here for George Mason. The game's not over yet, but I'm curious to see how it changes up in game 2 in terms of the draft for Georgia Tech. Will they go with this kind of stable 2-2-2, or will they mix it up or try to fix up the bands? Right now, Mo and Krill out of position again.
Oh, yes, they are, but maybe this is bait back. Remember, you has been strong, and they need to find the drink, but the drink goes ahead, goes into that shadow form, and is now going to break out. But what a turn! Solar Flare says, this time, I'm not the one that's caught, so I will immediately take your life. Bully moments abound as Cell is immediately dropped here, and you couldn't do anything on the back with that claw. Meanwhile, while this fight is occurring, George Mason say, cool, you want to take these fights? We'll take your mini Guardians lock. Nessie able to find the base Guardian #1. Base is now broken open, and it is an earn run as well. George Mason fighting on 3 different fronts right now, just trying to be annoying. Now keep in mind the Rejuvenator is down. It was barely utilized by George Mason's side, so they have to play as such that they do not have that extra life. But what a burn in turn here. The chase to force Night Haze away, and Georgia Tech are gonna start losing members. George Mason slinging their souls around like it does not matter. The drink yet again with 12 and counting. Zolan does the same on the Infernus, and it's a wash of 4 as you and Big Mike just try and stay alive.
Yikes. I mean, I'm looking at some of these items that are online, these tier 4s for the side of Yamato, just doing incredible spirit damage. And then the Infernus Zany, has a good gun build going on, so it's just, they don't know how to defend against this. The damage spread, all the different types coming out from the side of George Mason is just too strong right now. Another grasp here on the wood.
Oh, I do not know what you was doing there. I'll be quite honest. You stepping up, stepping out when you know your team isn't there, it felt like you were overreaching a little bit. But granted, you gotta overreach here because right now George Mason are reaching into your base. Shrine #1 going down here. Shrine #2 soon to follow. And Georgia Tech, they're gonna have to defend with their lives. There is enough weight of the souls that, quite honestly, this take of the patron could be a game ending. It explodes in yet half a second. 10 seconds out from respawning. And George Mason are gonna play the safe way. They instead back away, and Georgia Tech, they're left with a broken base.
Yeah, just absolutely ransacked. But with the frozen shelter, they're kind of re-aggress this because now they're all topped up. They don't even care that the haze is backdooring them because they know they can base race this and win.
Oh man, that chance, that fight is what you call just right there. The shell opens up a huge opportunity. Waiki and Cell are gonna go down. Zolan and Solar Flare make the sun appear, burning away Georgia Tech's chances with those two gone for a minute, no less. George Mason, say hello and welcome. We are on our last leg as well, and we will take game number 1.
Really well done. A tactical dismantling here for GM. They were able to, push the pace with this composition. They didn't let off the gas for an instant, but not only that, their rotations were very clean. They played a coordinated game with their tactical retreats, with their move from objective to objective, and that's hard to break through if you're not as coordinated on the other side. So we'll see how Georgia Tech responds to this. I'm looking for maybe a little mix-up in the draft.
I would assume so as well. I mean, this heavy-handed DPS side for George Mason has yielded so many results, but I also want to talk about the fact that the Drink did such amazing work as well. Total souls of 34.5, but the overall weight of this Yamato, this all the way 6th position, I will be honest, I did not give him much purchase. You already front-loaded on the damage aspect. I was curious to see how the Drink was going to play. The Drink shattered all my expectations. And if we are looking at a team like George Mason, I'm so happy to see a star rise up here. I firmly believe that we saw them propel the Yamato as well. It was just like, okay, we see you getting kills. Go ahead. Keep going, keep going, keep going. As you mentioned, seeing a shift in Georgia Tech would be right, but do we see a shift in George Mason as well, now that they've proven the 5 DPS works?
I don't think so. I think that they know they have the pace on their opponent, and so they're going to try to draft something similar. I don't think it's going to be the exact same because of how the bans, and maybe they'll get some picks away from them, but they're going to go for the same kind of mindset. For me, it was the Mo and Krill and the Talon lane that got pushed in from the side of GT. It's like 3 legs, a tripod, right? If one goes down, then the whole structure falls. And so they know if they can win just that one lane, the rest of the things will topple over. And so they're really going to invest into that. And I think they really stack the deck by having that many DPS, that much damage on the board.
Yeah, it's almost an overloading. You overload that circuit and you just take over from there. So I love the fact that you pointed it out. We'll see if Georgia Mason are going to shift things up, or if we're only going to see Georgia Tech do that. Now, of course, before we go to a break and get ready for game number 2, I want to give a big shout out again, as gamers are athletes too. And like athletes, you should train to perform at the highest level. That's why we love Fit Gamer. Be sure to check out their app for science-backed training tools, real-time insights, and a performance-driven ecosystem to elevate your own game. If you want to get better and get a little bit more healthy as well, go ahead and train like the teams at Cloud9 do, and go ahead and download the Fit Gamer app right now, because of course Fit Gamer app is for you. We'll go ahead, go to a short break, and when we come back, we'll see if this game 2 has anything to speak of, and if Georgia Tech are going to go ahead and push us to a game 3, or if we're going to see a George Mason take this series 2-0. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Long white beard and his crooked staff, he tramps along with the folks all left with a twinkle in his eye as he passes them by. The old man of the mountain. Long white beard and his crooked staff, he tramps along with the folks all left with a twinkle in his eye as he passes them by. The old man of the mountain. Long white beard and his crooked staff, he tramps along with the folks all left with a twinkle in his eye as he passes them by. The old man of the mountain. Long white beard and his crooked staff, he tramps along with the folks all left with a twinkle in his eye as he passes them by. The old man of the mountain.
The road to playoffs continues between Georgia Tech and George Mason. These two teams have been fighting to the bitter end, and yet George Mason coming out looking exemplary here tonight. 5 DPS with a Kelvin on the back end and a very strong Yamato, the drink, showing up here today. I believe it was 12 straight before they really even were touched towards that end game.
Yeah, the Yamato, known for being very shifty, very hard to pin down. They got hexed a couple times, but nobody could take her down. 0 deaths on the board for the Yamato, so the drink is one to watch. But I, as a support player, have to give it to Mathematical because there was a couple engagements where we called it out, where they were the reinforcements, helped with the healing grenade, and at the end, the siege of the base, putting down the frozen shelter, able to allow, like a lot of teams would just back off completely, go to jungle, and then recontest. Just stay in the shelter, heal up, get our ability cooldowns back, and push right on in. So Mathematical, hands down, a really well done performance from that.
Oh, it was an amazing one, quite honestly, and I hope to see even more of them. Honestly, I mean, the Kelvin was such a nice little swing in there. I am curious because we're looking on the other side, and for Georgia Tech, obviously, they're not playing with their full roster. I believe Team Mom and Sella, these two, very, very respectful for stepping in kind of on short notice here to be able to play with the team, but it does make the calls a little bit rougher, which is maybe why we saw Georgia Tech kind of fumble some of those early to mid-game stances, having a little bit of trouble making the reads and callouts. And as you said appropriately, maybe you need a composition shift. Maybe you do shift to a more micro-intensive where your carries don't have to rely on the team play as much, and you just kind of go ham.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point with the call-outs, because the composition that GM was running can confuse you, right? Because it's like, who do we target? Who's the priority? Well, everyone's the priority, so what do we do, right? And then when having the Magician on your team, finding the right opponent to hex and then having everybody coordinate to find that hexed opponent and attack them can be pretty difficult. So maybe having somebody with a little easier setup could be beneficial to their squad. Right now, GT, they're taking a Yamato. They have had enough to drink. That one's off the board.
I love the way you put that. Listen, we drank the lemonade for way too long. Now we want water. We want maybe some milk in there, whatever you can say. But Georgia Mason still respecting the side of Georgia Tech, saying we don't want to let that Vindicta through, which I can imagine if you have a Great Talon player, you have a Vindicta player as well. You look at both of them and they do work. What a change, though. Okay, Georgia Tech went from a Warden to a Lash, and both of these heroes, I feel, have a lot of weight behind it in a solo capacity. So you maybe not having that Warden, but the Lash being able to bring a lot of 1v1 or team fight impact.
And I really like this because the Lash does provide that team fight impact like you were talking about. When I'm thinking about their composition from last game, Moan, Krill, Wraith, etc., very single target type of people. And so it's really hard to win those team fights, especially against such a coordinated squad, if you have no team fight ultimates. So picking up the Lash with the Death Slam, a really good call. The same opener coming out here from GMU. That's scary.
Yeah. I mean, you were mentioning the Yamato, but the other side is that Calico was reaping the benefits of sometimes not being the center of attention. And that's the thing. When you have 5 prongs of attack, it's a whole different story. But the Kelvin, as you said, let through and allowed. But that is what I was mentioning. So it is still the Warden and now the Moe and Krill. And the Moe and Krill, you and I talked about it, did not impress us that much. It was a little bit awkward in there, got caught out a few times, and yet it can still hold value. And now, with a lot more sustainability, with the Lash and Warden, which we know these two can stay alive for a very long time, all of a sudden that Moe and Krill might be able to stay long enough. But there's the Abrams that was banned away in game 1. Bring it on in.
Yeah, I love to see it. There's that front line that we know and love from our detective. But I do want to harp on this with the Moe and Krill a little bit, because they were the sole initiator almost in that previous team composition. Now they don't have to do as much work. They don't have to try to pick out the right target. They can wait for the death slam to come in, find somebody who's a little bit lower, lock them down, and then they can, dismantle the team from there. So I really like not putting all of the initiation weight or onus onto the Moe and Krill. We have the bans coming in, the Magician getting banned out, as well as the Mirage. Nothing too out of the ordinary between those bans.
No, but it's a hard dynamic shift. I mean, you talk about it might not be anything out of our wheelhouse. We've seen these bans before, but for George Mason, you just lost 2 out of the 6 that you had utilized to a very high priority. The Yamato and the Mirage were doing so much work for them, and now, even if you want to run the 5 DPS, you can't. I think that pivot to the Abrams, you already understood that you were going to get multiple DPS checked out here. So yeah, now you pivot around. You actually say, well, if you're going to ban out what we have, we're going to take away what you had in game 1. You take their great talent for yourself. You have the snipes for yourself, and Georgia Tech are like, dang it, now we got to find some DPS in our pocket.
Yeah, opening up with a little bit of the spirit carry in terms of the gray talon there. So curious to see what they go for the bullet damage. Do they go for the haze? Do they go for the wraith? We didn't see Paradox either picked or banned in the previous match, so that one's off the board. But Georgia Tech stealing away another pick from the composition of GMU, and that's the Holiday.
I mean, these are quite literally everyone kind of picking at the pieces that were left over from that game 1. They bring the haze back in, so Night Raze is going to be using that one as best as possible. And honestly, it didn't show up that well. 1-9-1 in that game. It was rough because again you were targeted out. So maybe this time around you spread that spotlight factor around a little bit more. But 2 DPS, the Holiday and the Rays are going to be really happy. There's the Bebop, though. Oh, boy, George Mason. Listening to Philly B a little bit. Hey, let's go ahead and grab that one-shot wonder.
Oh, man, I love it. And this is, if I'm the Haze player, I'm kind of shaking in my boots a little bit, because if you're the sole, damage dealer, you're going to be the one that's first to be targeted, especially with some of these initiators like the Bebop or the shoulder charge coming in from the detective. So the Haze is going to have to be really careful. Like you were saying, not super impactful in the previous game, but that's because they just didn't have their way into these fights. They couldn't pick a good engagement. GMU rounding out with the Infernus, they did a really good job, and they're an Ivy to help round out the composition for GT, a little extra support.
Well, not just that, this now leads into heavy team fight versus heavy team fight, and some picking there with the Bebop, because George Mason, they were forced to do away with this kind of active five-finger composition here with an extra in tow. You now have a much more, I want to say, standard style. You have the Bebop and the Abrams and the Kelvin. These are all great utility supports in there. You bring a lot of teamfight prowess or the pick style. But you had 3 identified DPS. You had the Infernus, the Grey Talon, and the Calico. All 3 of these are going to be heavily targeted, I feel, from Georgia Tech. And now Georgia Tech also had the rotational value. They have the Ivy. They have the Moe and Krill. These 2 can rotate around the map so quickly.
Yeah, the Lash as well. Holiday with the jump pad. There's a lot of mobility on the team, so some guerrilla warfare coming out from GT. But GMU, very stable in their composition here. I really like it. There's a lot of sustain on their side, especially with the Calvin, with the Abrams, etc. So they're going to be hard to dislodge. If they get up early, it's going to be hard to fight into.
So here's the deal then. Are Georgia Tech happy about what they're facing off against? Are they more comfortable here? Because remember, for them, they need this victory. They have a chance to actually make it up into top 4, maybe even break into top 3, depending on how their next 3 matches go, or the next 2 after this one. Are they comfortable? Are they happy about this current stance? Are they going to be excited for this game 2, possibly moving into game 3?
They have to get the picks. They're a pick-based composition with the Holiday, with the Lash, right? They have to get the picks, they have to get them early, and they need to get their snowball rolling down the hill before the side of GMU.
All right, well, let's see if they can do so. GMU, for their own, they are one step in the right direction of their own as well. Yes, they might have been 1-4, but the current stance for them is they win here and they win their next week, and all of a sudden, they're also in a race for that 4th place position. Quite literally, no one is out. That's what we're saying here. So, George Mason allocating appropriately. You can go ahead and see, I believe it is the Bebop and Abrams there in the middle lane, which is a very funny matchup to me, but also one of the most bruiser-heavy mid lanes that you can have versus the other side, where we do see the Calvin and Grey Talon off to the left end of your screen.
I do like this mid lane. It is funky for these characters, but here's the thing. If one pair can win out, these are all 4 really great rotators across the map. And so they can facilitate those ganks really well. So that's what they're going to be aiming for. How do we create enough space for us to not lose a Guardian, that we have enough time to go to another lane, help them win that, and then get back in time? But there's a hook.
Oh, what a hook and a half. Great roll out here, though, and maybe you get a chase. Oh, no, Night Rage, you went into the wrong doorway. You went into an inescapable room, and because of that, you do go down for first blood in just 2 minutes, and all of a sudden, Team Mom tried to help out, and the Ivy is so squishy, yet tried to run. Reload coming in from the Abrams, and it's the drink yet again to get some more. Already GMU off to a great start.
Yeah, he picked the headshot booster to boot, just to put a little extra salt in the wound, because he'll be clicking the domes all throughout, and that's a good start there for GMU in that mid lane. They're going to be able to get those rotations on a little bit sooner.
Here's the deal. We're already seeing those side lanes break out once again. Take a look. Sella and Big Mike are yet again kind of forced down into the rough zones. They're off on the right side of this battlefield, but it's Calico and Infernus yet again applying that kind of overall hazing factor. We mentioned it before in game number 1, and it's happening yet again already. Almost 600 souls apiece for Loch Nessie and Death Ninja in that value.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the soul disparity between the two, seeing if there's really one lane that is winning. This time, lane number 1, a little bit more even than it was before, but it's that mid lane leg that is kind of wobbling at this time. They might need some help. The Mo and Krill, he's bashing his way through.
Well, he is, but he might have bashed a little bit too close to the sun as he tried to get back to safety, and unfortunately, he is taken quite low. You can see the Calico rocking their way away. Loch Nessie once again in their own. So Sella was able to live. We will say that. Sella was able to live, and we're still waiting to see if anyone gets a little bit messier. Quick tap, though, on the extra orb. I love this kind of mini-game within a mini-game that we get to watch a lot of time. What another hook, though, as that's going to be the Stone Form coming out here, and that is a walk away. But the damage has been done. It's a chase away and a half. You can see the Abrams chasing, though, and it's the drink yet again to solo out and get that finish. 3-kill streak for the drink. Uh-oh. Low HP, though. Oh, Bebop. You gotta shift away, though, and it looks like they are going to be allowed to live, but the ult comes in from the backside. Great slam down the drink. Slams onto Team Mom's head.
The disrespect, man. The solo ult, the squish into the dirt, the gargoyle, not long for the world, but yeah, a really good combination between those two, because yeah, if you hook in and get the uppercut, you get super low. The Abrams has oodles of health. They'll just finish everybody off and they'll dive under tower care. The drink just outplaying everyone right now in the Cursed Apple.
I mean, at this point, what drink is the drink? Like, is the drink just a mixture of every energy drink out there? He is playing on all cylinders. 3.7k souls, has been so aggressive and showing their versatility as well. The drink is showing that they are a primary, a spotlight player for the team. I mean, they've been so active here on the Abrams just as well. I am terrified for the rest of this game as Georgia Tech haven't found a way to lock him down.
Yeah, so they're bleeding some kills, but not a lot of Guardian damage, and so that's what's important, because as long as you still have map control, or at least some semblance thereof, you're still in the match. So you're okay with giving up some of those kills early, because you know where you shine, and it's in that mid-game kind of area. But to the drink, I think they're taking the secret sauce from Michael Jordan, from the from Space Jam. I think that's what they've been having. But I also have to highlight Mathematical, right? Those are the two spotlight players we talked about in our pregame show. And there's another hook on the Ivy.
It's just never ending. I feel like poor Ivy is getting soloed out here. How can you get camped against your lane opponents? I don't see how that works. And yet they've done it. Once again, the Bebop that you mentioned yielding so many results now, even forcing Waiki out. It's pretty much done here. You can see this. It's annihilation. And Night Rays is actually the one piloting that last. GG's on that fight.
And that's exactly what we talked about in terms of the Abrams. They'll dive the tower. They don't care, but a little bit of rebuttal here from Georgia Tech.
Yes, they're going to try and fight back, and honestly, this is the answer to some of the earlier, but it doesn't matter. Zolan on the Infernus fights back. Night Rays was able to bite a little bit more off of the drink, but yet again, George Mason feel like they are winning out so heavily in these stances. Great ult from Sella, but Sella, you gotta run away. Quick snipe on the back end. You are barely able to live, by the way. You are on a life support on the end, but it does mean you have to give up this Guardian hold, so George Mason are gonna take a lot of damage off of this one.
Yeah, the combo just more of like a stall tactic to get their cooldowns online, but Team Mom goes down again. This is why Bebop is banned time and time over, because of that hook. That displacement ability is just so strong, especially with the Mystic Reach online. You can grab people from anywhere. So I feel like there has to be a lane switch that comes through. This lane is just getting pushed in. A death slam.
Oh, but the slam really doesn't bring death. Instead, it just brings, like, what, a happy accident? Night Rays, of course, says, no, it brings the damage. Solar Flare is going to go down, but it's not the primary. Keep in mind, to me, the one that you're really trying to finish off is Abrams. You really are trying to finish off the drink here.
Yeah, and he's going into a good mix of the melee build here. I'm seeing the melee charge, the melee lifesteal, the spirit melee punch as well. So he wants to get up close and personal. We haven't really looked at these other lanes so far. All three lanes, though, definitely taking some damage. But the lane with the Holiday, though, looking the best out of the three.
I think for their own, we also just haven't seen you fight that much, right? If we're talking about this, it's been, the only reason we're saying this is it feels like we haven't really seen death and galore around this edge. So the fact that we are seeing that 5K stack up, it does feel good. But there's going to be more in it because of the drink. Getting some revenge with Zolan in the back end, and just a wash as Zolan flies on through. We're watching the Calico, but it's the fire from the Infernus, burning 3 total.
My goodness, yeah, that fight happened and ended before it even started, it feels like. And that is the rotation that is breaking the deadlock, pun intended, and is allowing for these Guardians now to fall. A ton of souls unlocked here for GMU.
2 in quick succession, 14,000 souls lead. George Mason are on the way to yet again a comfortable game 2. Now, here's the deal. We've seen them fight before. We've seen them win before. Now my question is, with this type of lead, how cleanly can you close out the game? And I'm not calling it right away. Granted, it's leaning into their favor, but I do want to see a clean closeout of this macro. I want to see what they can do, and one of those is just sprint their way in. Great burn coming out here, and you get onto you, and you falls yet again on that warning. You can't do anything as Zolan claims your life yet again. Mike, you're doing what you can, but unfortunately, Big Mike is very small in this battle, and it is yet again Death Ninja to say hello. Great catch, though, on the back end. Nessie, though, takes out a friendly Guardian on the back end, and it's just George Mason everywhere that they are fighting. Across the map, they're getting victory, whether running away or diving in.
And this is what we talked about. If you win one lane, and in this case 2, you know you can go to the third lane that was kind of even keel and turn the tides, flip the table, pull the rug out from under them, whatever you want to say, and they can take that Guardian down. So expanding their gold lead and playing a good macro game here is GMU.
Gold? I didn't know we had gold here. Where do we get
souls,
gold?
Souls.
Oh, okay. Listen, if we got another currency, that's great. I want to know because Georgia Tech was like, well, we need something other than souls because we're not getting that much. Zolan is going to drop Night Rays here, and it's a dangerous spot to be in as the souls truly are claimed for Death Ninja, but it's been a tough road. Georgia Tech, every so often we see a glimmer of opportunity, and yet George Mason are just like, no.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened in game 1. It's 1 step forward, 2 step back here for Georgia Tech. But you have to make moves. You can't just play passively. You have to try to make things happen. But when you're not in double digits and half the team on the other side is, it's going to feel worse for wear. But getting a kill in the Calico could be nice, but the return to Shadow is too strong.
It just keeps you so safe right now. A little bit of a burrow up and about. You can see Sella trying to do work, but You get chased right out and away. Heavy investment here from WKey and Team Mom, as well with the ultimates. But again, this collection, this push from George Mason is yielding results as they go ahead, come back a little bit. You can see they're spending a lot of their souls as well. Multiple members sitting on only like 1.4, 1.5. I like what they're doing here. George Mason has shown restraint in multiple moments in Game 1 and now in Game 2 as well. They're not allowing Georgia Tech to have a large window for variance, for that gamble factor of Georgia Tech kind of fighting back to even the souls up.
And yeah, it's really good that you mentioned their patience, because they know Georgia Tech has to do something, so they're allowing them to pick the fight, and they know that then that's where they'll take it, right? If they want to go over to the Urn, okay, we'll fight you at Urn. If you want to try to take Guardian in mid, we'll fight you Guardian mid. Whatever it might be, they're going to wait for them to make the move and then counterattack.
We'll see if they can fight it out. Quick little test up and about Georgia Tech. You can see where they were adjusted over towards that Urn like you were kind of alluding to, and of course no one's picked it up just yet because George Mason has such a chokehold on a lot of these Walker situations. Quick lull here though, as once again is the Abrams and the Bebop just like, yeah, if you want to fight you can try, but it ain't really gonna do too much. I love the little jiggle right there. The drink is like, I don't really care what goes down. Claw? No worries on my end.
And so that's a little bit of the Bebop kind of sticking his toe in mathematical and saying, all right, if you guys aren't going to make a move on the Urn, I'm going to push your Walker a little bit and kind of ruffle your feathers. So a good little piece of damage onto that middle Walker, but nothing too much coming out of it. We are at the 10-minute mark, so the Urn's available. The bridge buffs are available as well. But right now, just kind of in a farming state, waiting to head to those next power spikes.
Let's see what they can do. So George Mason very comfortably leaning into a what do we do next type of feel. Bebop kind of looking left, right, and left again. It's just like, all right, where do I go here? What do we want to do? This is what I was talking about, though. Being able to identify for George Mason, how do we start closing out this game? How do we start actively chasing about quick TP, though, as everyone gets right into the mix here. And I love this. I don't know if you were playing this, but George Mason says, screw it. And we can't find a macro. We'll find the micro. A TP into Death Blossoming. Annihilation of Boy Kissa and Team Mom might be the opening that they want. You found Loch Nessie on the other side, but it's the Urn run yet again that has yielded George Mason a massive lead.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Just not understanding the map state there, right? You know where the Urn is. You know that it's going to be in that opposite spot. You can't be pushing that far forward, especially if you don't have your tier 1 Guardian. The teleporters, they're just so easy to just navigate. So a good gank there coming out from the Infernus to toggle to the other side of the map, do a concussive combustion, secure 2 kills, and allow them to put a lot of pressure in this lane.
I don't have any backup. I need to be careful.
Yes, you do. Yes,
Yeah.
you do. That was
wise words.
yeah, I was just listening to that. I was like, yeah, you kind of need to. I mean, you guys are down very, very far in the hole. Holiday hasn't really worked out. You're still sitting at about 28 souls behind, 28,000. So it's been a tough road, but you are looking to fight back. Heavy lean by Georgia Tech over to this left side of the battlefield. And you can see Zany just trying to pop up, throw a bit of extra damage here, and get ready. But a quick rotate here as this shell could be big. Here comes the collapse that we've seen George Mason do way, way before. Quick lash doesn't really do too much, though, as the drink still takes away multiple lives. Down goes Big Mike, and they don't have anything to play for. And now comes that chase. George Mason fighting their way through. That is going to be a trooper take, though. Georgia Tech getting a little bit of love from the neutrals running around here, as they are able to take one Walker for the name. Guardian, not Walker.
They want to win too, these troopers, right? They're marching, they're sacrificing their lives for it. But I think the Death Slam was actually negated by the Frozen Shelter. Seismic Impact, though, is in, takes down the Haze. She is not long for this world. It's the drink, once again, coming up with the goods.
At this point, the drink is never ending here. Might as well be bottomless mimosas. Loch Nessie going ahead, taking a walker for their own. George Mason starting to clean up a lot of these structures here, and that actually really makes me happy. One of the things that I will always talk about is how well do you close out? How well do you take these macros and start moving around? Well, this is the way to do it. Take a walker, take a fight, take a walker, take a fight. And now we're seeing it yet again. Quick tower shell out as Team Mom tried to slow things down, but unfortunately, it just leads to W Key as well as Team Mom dying there. And Georgia Tech once again lose to. Now comes you as you tries to bring some damage, but the Warden is not a strong Warden here as Solar Flare takes their life with the Hyper Beam and with the Bop. The B-Bop throwing down with only 14,000 souls, and yet might as well have 20.
Yeah, looking really clean on this, and it's right to the mid-boss, knowing that 3 members are down, and the wave state is in their favor, so all the troopers are pushing into their structures. They have to deal with that because they can't give up any more structural damage. We do have the rejuve coming in here, Orbital.
It ain't going anywhere. Fit Gamer Rejuvenator once again in the hands of George Mason. And I want to point out something. Keep in mind, last time George Mason got this, they didn't care. They were fit enough. They didn't need the Rejuvenator in their hands. And I will say that as a bittersweet moment. One, you're glad that you don't need the Rejuvenator to be taken into account to take a lead. The other is that maybe you weren't aggressive enough to even utilize that. The fact that it wasn't even burned on anyone does make me feel that maybe they played a little bit too safe with that.
Yeah, the holiday is what is perplexing me here. We haven't seen a single lasso, as we will see the haze go down again. The Ivy trying to save the carry, but they are late to the party once more. Team Mom not arriving with the pizza in time, but Nana Llama is our eye in the sky here, and we know they can capture all the action. Not a single lasso, I feel like, has been effective, and that is a linchpin of your composition.
It really, really is. Right now, we are seeing the burn on the ground, but once again, it is the drink to come out to help out the rest of the team. They were caught out in a weird spot, but George Mason yet again slammed down this book. The detective saying, I found my culprits, and the culprits are eliminated. Big Mike falls yet again. 17.5 minutes in, yet we're already inside of the mini Guardians. George Mason ready to put this game to end.
And that's what we talked about during our draft, is the Abrams is, if an Abrams is ahead, it feels fantastic, and you're getting that on display here tonight with the side of the drink. Here's someone we haven't talked about, and it's the Grey Talon. I feel like they haven't really been super involved. They've been just busy taking down structure after structure, as you can see them doing now with the base Guardians just dealing so much damage.
This is destructive. I have no idea why Stella is here right now. Stella does not want to be even close, and yet you have overstepped your boundaries. In that same time frame, a walker has been taken. The mini Guardians and the Shrines have all fallen all at once. George Mason fighting a 3-pronged attack, and yet they make it look like one. Yet again, a Shrine will fall. And there is going to be destruction. George Mason yet again, even faster than game number 1. They have annihilated the base of Georgia Tech. They are looking at the patron. And at this point, Georgia Tech, what in the world can you do?
Everybody press ultimate and hope we pick out somebody. And there
they
is
did it.
The Warden took down the raid boss in the drink. Finally, a little bit of respite. The Death Slam to follow it up, though. They have to find some kills off the back of it.
I mean, they're going to do more than that. You was able to find Zolan, and boy, Kissa finds Solar Flare. So it is Georgia Tech on the defensive, and a much-needed one as well. It has taken 19 minutes for them to even find semblance of those kills, and they are all single digits. I want to point that out there. That was only 3. That was barely anything, and yet it felt like a monumental win for Georgia Tech.
Whew, they don't have many structures left, if any at all. We appreciate Kashi, also our producer here for this one, giving us a little bit of that information. But what's really telling for me is the AP, the ability points. There was like, what, a difference of 40 on there? That is extremely scary, because if you're on your tier 4, tier 5s of your ability, you are pumping damage.
At this point, damage is just your middle name. Maybe even the first one is. That's a quick tether down. Grey Talon setting up and being like, this is not the Grey Talon of game number 1. This is my Grey Talon. Owl flying out here. As Loch Nessie finds the snipe. Night Rays is gone. And that is destructive yet again. George Mason finding pick after pick after pick after pick the drink, forcing their opponent to drown in whatever they have mixed up as Big Mike falls. It's another earned return, and George Mason expand upon their Souls lead. At this point, almost 50k in the lead. Slam down, 5 Big Mike, punch 1, punch 2, shotty to the dome, and it is all you could ask for. The chase onto the bodies, Georgia Tech falling one by one, and with that, it is 3 with 30 seconds plus on their death timers.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Unfortunately,
it's
this
over.
game is over. The slam comes through,
Yep.
but they're just going to shrug that off. The patron is being whittled down. Just dancing around it here is George Mason, and they will take this series 2-0.
I didn't even recognize that. I was too impressed by the drink. The drink was quite literally doing whatever. And George Mason were just ending the game. So well played by GMU. They take a staunch step forward in their return and hopeful chance at the playoff run. Remember, this victory is one of 2 that they are hoping for. They need next week as well, but this was comfortable. And the drink claiming, what is that? 5 out of 7 major stat lines, 32,000 souls, 16 kills, 24.5 player damage, 13,000 objective damage, and somehow 10,000 healing on their own.
Almost the rainbow, as we call it, right? Getting all of the leading stats, but it is Solar Flare on the Bebop who was able to steal away the assist, which makes sense, facilitating the drink to be the raid boss that he is. But as you mentioned, right now GMU is 2-4. They have one more match to play, and that will be against NCS Esports. So that is a game they'll be looking to win, which they are also currently at 1-4. So you would imagine that they would be able to take that victory. If they do, they're at a 3-4 record. Northwood at 3-2. If they drop their final 2 games, there's a potential that they can make it in that 4th spot.
Oh, 100%. If the drink continues to play as the drink did with this help from the rest of the team, it is very, very important. Now, we also don't want to call out Georgia Tech, as they also still have a very small opportunity, I believe, to make it in. They are sitting at a 1-3, meaning if they win their next 2 matches as well, they'll actually be tied. The problem comes down to the fact that it's a head-to-head setup then between GMU and Georgia Tech, and that will lean into GMU's favor. So there are so many little factors that go into this, that this was just a stepping stone, and that's what makes me excited. We are in, what, week 7, and yet we are talking about the bare stepping stones into the playoffs is wild to me. So Philly, any thoughts about the end of this matchup? I mean, we saw GMU do really, really well. We saw the drink step up. Or do we see anything for Georgia Tech's side, as again, this might not have been the full strength of the team?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The subs really doing their best, but you could tell that it was a little off here and there in terms of their communication. Some people were just kind of going out on their own, that sort of thing. So the communication, the coordination was just a speck off there for the side of Georgia Tech. You'd like to see them right the ship when they get their full squad. We're in the spring break kind of season right now, where all the different schools are in different time zones, different spring break eras, whatever. So sometimes those subs have to come through. On the other side, if George Mason, if they play like they did today, they can go toe-to-toe with the best of them, with how well they were coordinated, the way they rotated, the pace of which they played, the way they layered their ultimates and their abilities to CC chain and get people out of position. Really well done from them. So definitely one to keep track of moving forward.
100%. I mean, they also showed great flexibility in the adjustments of their compositions, something that we don't often see from a lot of teams, or at least as comfortably as we saw there today. But granted, they still took the victory no matter what. George Mason stepping up to the plate, now sitting at a 2-4. Congratulations to them, Georgia Tech. We'll see what we can do in the future. Of course, there are going to be more matches in the future, and of course, if you want to catch all the action as we close out the regular season and look forward to the playoffs come next week or the weeks beyond, make sure to stay up to date on the College Deadlock socials. You can go ahead and find all those socials on the X, on I believe Instagram, and all the other areas as well. Go ahead and like and follow at College Deadlock to get all of that information. Also, follow my boy, I think I pointed the wrong way, yes, this way, Philly B on the socials as well. Amazing caster, and of course all the hands on deck. Kashi, as you mentioned, on the production, and then of course Not a Llama on the observation. My name has been Orbital. You can find me at Orbital_casting, but we'll see ya all next time. Once again, shout out to Fit Gamer as well.
lonesome. Until I first met you, I was lonesome. And when you came inside, dear, my heart grew light and this whole world seemed new to me. You're really swell, I have to admit you deserve expressions that really fit you. And so I've racked my brain hoping to explain all the things that you did to me. Mere Mr. Shane, please let me explain. Mere Mr. Shane means you're grand. Mere Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the please let me explain. Mere Mr. Shane means you're grand. Mere Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land.
Greetings from the Andrews sisters. I'm Patty.
I'm Maxine.
And I'm Laverne.
I could say Bella, Bella, even Sevender bar. Each language only helps me tell you how grand you are. I've tried to explain. Me is Mr. Shane, so kiss me, kiss me, kiss me, so that you will understand.